Good morning, all. My screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We'll revise first what we have learned in last lecture. So I think we have seen about ER diagram. We have seen different type of attributes. We have seen extended features of ER diagram. Uh, what are these features? Extended ER diagram features. We have seen aggregation, generalization, specialization, and inheritance. So these were the four extended feature we have seen. Then we have seen total participation, partial participation, strong entity, and weak entity. I think I have given you assignment on drawing an ER diagram. So I hope you might have completed and joined the Google Classroom. So in today's lecture, we'll be looking for the architecture, overall architecture of the database management system. So it's very important thing. You will be getting in university a question based on drawing that architecture diagram. So you have to understand, or sometime it might be ask you explain the architecture with the diagram. So you have to get a 10 marks or 5 marks question based on the thing what they have asked. Either they have asked you only to draw a diagram, or they are asking for drawing a diagram with this we can call it as explanation of the diagram. So here I am going to start. If you see this diagram, this is the database system overall architecture, or we can see that this is an internal structure of any database management system. So I hope you all are looking this from, we'll be starting from top to bottom. So if you see the first panel, what it says is there are Navy users, there are application programmers, there are sophisticated users, and there are database administrators. So these are the four main pillar who will be using your system, your database management system. Now we'll be looking this one by one. Now, first, Navy based users. Which are these Navy based users? The client, or the web users, the tailors, or the agent who are going to use this system. The person who is going to handle your graphical user interface is nothing but called as Navy users. These can use application interface to connect with your application. Then next comes is application programmer. Now, who are these people who are application programmers? Now, understand that application programmers are nothing the people who can connect your front end with a back end database. There is a back end database person. He is called as a sophisticated user who knows query, who knows to write how to write queries and everything. These are going to plan the database design, but the front end user where the things need to be displayed will be done by application programmers. So first is Navy based Navy users, second is application programmers who write an application programs, and based on their programs the interfacing can be done. Now sophisticated user are nothing but they are called as database analysts, or they can be called as database designers. So these people are nothing but they write a query using some different type of query tools. Now we'll going to learn this in practicals. So now henceforth we people are working on the sophisticated user, or will be acting as an analyst, or we can be a database administrator, because we are not going to connect a client and server application. We are working on server itself. So we are the admin of our database system. So we people are going to work on sophisticated user and database administrator level. So what we people can be doing is we can administrate administration different tools of database, and we are writing some kind of query, and then afterwards we are going to learn how to integrate your front end with a backend database architecture. So these are the four different types of the users for the database management system. Then comes next part is the query processor. Now what is the query? Now here in database management system, a query is nothing but a command given to a database, that is called as query. Meaning some if you see in a programming we follow some instructions, so we give instruction to the program, or we write some commands to program. Like if I want to create a directory on terminal, what you people write is mkdir and directory name if you are working with a Ubuntu operating system. So that is what you are following some instruction, or you are going to command the system to do something. So here we are dealing with a query processor. Now, what is query processors? Query is nothing but you are writing a English like statement in the database management system tools, and that statement is going to be actually work with the database which are stored in the your hard drive or disk, and that has to retrieve something from the database what is demanded from the user. Users are nothing but the web users. So we are going to learn a query processor. Now, just like a programming, what you have seen, you used to write a program in a source file, and that source file is going to be converted into a machine code. Now, your English like, meaning high level language or normal English like statements, we have to make a conversion into a machine code. Now, who are going to helping us in query processing is, there is compiler and linker. The compiler and linker are provided with the application programmer, because we are writing some kind of front end, and that front end can be converted. Now these compilers will be creating an application project object code which is going to be actual output to the Navy user. Then this in consideration with the DML queries, DML meaning data manipulation language, we are going to elaborate this in further lectures. What are DML queries? Then DML is, we are going to manipulate something from a table. So that is what DML, and DDL is nothing but data definition language. What the table structure is the table present in the system, is the database already created in the system, that is going to be work with the DDL interpreter. Now all this in together, then DML queries are then compiled and organized, because when we write any query in database management system, that query can be written in multiple form. Now what you have to do is, what the query processor will do is, there is an optimizer present which is called as which are present with the query evaluation engine. What it is going to do is, it is going to convert your DML query in the optimized format, so that you will get a less time in getting that output. Now hence you will be finding there is a query evaluation engine which is selecting the best optimized plan, and then your program is going to be executed, or the storage manager will help you to take the data from the disk. So after query processor, if you see, you will be finding there is a storage manager. Now what is storage manager? Now storage manager sees the lookup with the management of the database. Now are you person authorized or not? So it does authorization and integrity manager. If you are storing something in the table, and if that table is not satisfying the integrity rule, then this integrity manager is going to check that. Then comes is a transaction manager. Now what is transaction manager, we'll look after afterwards. Then next comes is a file manager. Now that data is stored in which file, are they file having some kind of indexes? So all these things will be done by file manager. And buffer manager is nothing but, at the time of processing, we have taken that data into a buffer area for execution. Again, if you change something, again it has to revert back or store the data into the database. Now this is how storage manager works. Then comes as of the actual the disk storage, where the data is actually residing. So that is, we can have data, then we have indices, then data dictionary and statistical data. Now statistical data is nothing but, it stores the data into some types of graphical thing, which administration or authorization person can easily get an idea. Data dictionary is nothing but, it's we can call it as metadata. It stores data about data. It's a complete data with the metadata of the database. Then comes is indices. Now what is the help is, in some of the system you will be finding, if you are not applying any kind of indexes on a table value or column, any column specific, you are not applying any indices. So sometimes the indices are applied automatically to make your searching time more efficient. Now we'll be seeing this afterwards, how to apply your own index, how to remove that index, how the searching time is better if you apply index, and how the searching time is not good or not benefited if you are not applying any kind of indices. And then comes your actual data, which are nothing but the actual storage of the database. So data, you'll be finding this is the overall database system architecture. Once again, I'll repeat all this. So your system start with the 4 different users: Navy user, application programmers, sophisticated user, and database administrator. then they all have different tools to connect with your query processor. Now in your query processor, a query is going to be executed or compiled, and then it is going to be evaluated by evaluation engine. Then comes as a storage manager, where you'll be finding a buffer manager, file manager, authorization and integrity manager, and then we'll get is transaction manager. And finally you'll be getting that data, the disk storage of the actual data. We'll be seeing more detail about each and every part in coming slide. I hope you got the basic idea how your system is going to run. So this is called as a front end, and this is called as the back end part. From query processor to the disk storage are nothing but the back end operation of the database management system. Now we have already seen database user. Then if you'll find application programmers are nothing but a computer professional interacting with the system through DML calls embedded in the program written in the host language. Like you can connect a C with MySQL, you can connect C with Oracle, you can connect Pascal with Oracle, you can connect PHP with the Oracle or MySQL. That we are going to learn in after your group A and group B assignments. Now, a sophisticated user are nothing but with who interact with the system without writing programs, meaning they form requests by writing queries in the database query language. So they don't have to worry about the GUI. They are only dealing with the database kind of thing. Then database user is nothing but which who are going to administrate overall process. If there is any problem, so this person are authorized to break the or solve these problems. The next comes is Navy users, who are unsophisticated user who interact with the system by using payment application programs or automated teller systems like that. Now next comes storage manager. Now storage manager is a program module that provides the interface between the low level data stored in the database and the application programs and the queries submitted to the system. The storage manager is responsible to do following tasks. One is interaction with the OS file manager and efficient storing, retrieving and updating of the data. So it follows all the rules and regulations what have table applied for storing, retrieving and updating of the data. Now issues is with the storage access, then file organization, indexing and hashing. All this are responsible by storage management. Then next comes is query processor. Now if you see this, query processing works with three steps. One is called as parsing and translation, optimization, evaluation. Now suppose I am writing any query xyz, that query is written in proper, we'll be getting in practicals that whenever we write any certain query, and if we make the query is not written in a correct form, then it gives you error. So same thing in programming language, if you not follow the proper syntax, you will be getting a syntax error. So this is what you are not following. Like in C, you will be always finding if you are missing semicolon, you will be getting a error is semicolon missing. So that makes a sense that the query is checked and uh, checked for proper syntax they are going to follow or not. So same thing in query also, you write a query and that parser and translator parse the query so that your query is written in correct form as per the requirement of the syntax, and it translate the query into relational algebra. Now relational algebra is again a one more chapter where you will be getting that the machine coded form of the query has been written. Now then the relational algebra expression is written for that specific query, and then it is sent to optimizer. Now what is optimizer? One query can be written into multiple forms. So optimizer is the optimizer using the statistics about the data you will be finding here in the diagram. Statistics about the data will optimize the query, and then the query is going to be executed by the execution plan of the query has been generated, which is final selected, and then evaluation engine is going to execute that query, and the output of the query will be given to us. So that is what how a query processor works. A query processor is nothing but this many steps it has to do. We'll be writing just an English like statement, but the MySQL compiler, or we can call it as a interpreter, will convert that query into this many steps, and then we'll get a query output. Now next comes is transaction management. What if the system fails? Meaning what will happen if suppose transaction is nothing but a unit of work. So suppose I want to transfer some xyz amount from account A to account B. Now this is what it should be, the amount should be deducted from my account and it should be added to the account B. So this completes one unit of work, and this is nothing but called as transaction. If suppose the transaction fails, suppose from account A amount is been deducted but it is not added to B, and in between the system fails, then what will happen, who is going to work? That is called as transaction management. So this transaction, what need to be done, either the money is reverted back to the, you will also find sometime your transaction fails and next day you get a message that your money is again revert back to your own account in spite of completing that transaction. So who is going to do this? This is nothing but transaction management. We are going to see what are the different steps of managing this transaction and how the process has been done, how it can be revert back the amount to a original account so that the system failure will not be happen. Sometime you will be finding there are a lot of big systems like in cloud computing, and many systems are there. When you execute something, sometime it happens the system is down, and within us within a 5 minutes, or we can call it as less than that, another system is going to up and that makes a link to. So what is happening is, you don't face any downtime in the system, immediately the action will be done. So that is again a one kind of transaction. Who does this transaction, who is done this part is also done by a transaction management. What if more than one user is concurrently updating the same data? So if suppose I am using a table ABC and some another person is again going to use same table ABC, we are both operating on the same time on the same table, then how the things can be happening? So this is all work of transaction management. A transaction is nothing but it is a collection of operations that perform a single logical function in the database application. Then transaction management components ensures that database remains in a consistent. Now you'll ask me what is consistent, ma'am? So consistent meaning, if suppose I am having A plus B is equal to A has 200 and B has 200. So if I do A plus B, I am getting 400. Sometime a transaction happens where A deducts 100 rupees and deposit that 100 rupees to account B. Now if after the transaction completes, what will be the total sum? Again it comes as A as 10 100 and B as 300. That means total sum again occurs is 400. So before the transaction and after the transaction the amount remains the same, meaning summation of A and B comes with the 400 only. So that is not, your database is consistent. Before any operation and after an operations, your value should match on that data should be affected on your original database. That comes with the property of consistency. Now, despite of system failures, sometimes you might happen their system is crash, power failures and transaction failure. Banking system has facing this major problems. If you'll find कि bank अगर कोई environmental condition हो, and if your server is residing at a one place, and then if suppose any environmental condition your bank server crashes, then it makes a big loss. So what people are nowadays preferring that they are distributing their database, same copy of the database is replicated into geographically distributed locations. Like one server will reside in Pune, another will be residing in UK, and another will be residing in Australia. So you'll be finding that all three different servers are located in different places, so that they could not there should not be any system crash or failure, and same data what is reflected in one server is reflected in all the remaining servers. So that is what you can work on transaction management. Then comes this concurrency is nothing but parallelism and concurrency as are two different words. Parallel meaning at one time all are working, concurrency meaning one finished then next is started, another finished then another has been started. So concurrency control manager controls the interaction among the concurrent transaction. Concurrent transaction मतलब ऐसे transactions एक के बाद एक होना चाहिए. You could not do each transaction at that time only. So if that comes with parallel, and then we cannot prove that there should be consistent in the data is consistent in the database. So we have to go with concurrent transaction only. Now next comes is query processor. Now query processor have DML compiler, which translate your data manipulation language into query engine instruction. It might also do optimization for query. I have already told you. DML linker, it converts the DML statement in the application program to a normal procedure calls in the host language. So it links with your host language for which you are connecting the database. Now interpreter, it interprets DDL statements and records them in a set of tables containing metadata. So DDL log create करता है and it makes everything whatever you are doing, so that if there is a failure it can revert back कि क्या change हुआ था, कौन से table में क्या change हुआ, everything can be reverted back. Then comes this query evaluation engine. Now we have already seen how the evaluation engine works. It takes a final evaluation plan and try to execute. Then comes a storage manager. We are just revising this authorization and integrity manager. Authorization मतलब उसको मैंने rights दिए है क्या? If suppose I am assigning some kind of password and protection, and if another person is going to hack that, so it is not going to allow. So authorization is I have allowed them to work, or to I have granted a permission to work on my database or tables. That is going to be checked. Integrity manager. Integrity meaning there are some kind of constraints, लाइक अगर सपोज आपने प्राइमरी की है और प्राइमरी की का टेबल किसी और टेबल पे लिंक्ड है, वहाँ पे वो वाली कोई की फॉरेन की होगी. आई एक्सप्लेन आफ्टरवर्ड्स अबाउट दिस. बट इफ दिस टेबल टू टेबल्स आर रिलेटेड, सो इट हैज़ टू फॉलो सम काइंड ऑफ इंटीग्रिटी. अगर आप प्राइमरी से कुछ डिलीट कर रहे हो तो सब जगह से डिलीट होना चाहिए. So that is what you can make is integrity manager. Just like an example I can give, suppose roll number 1 has been added to a department. He took admission from office. Office has given the list. We have entered that roll number in our department. Some after 1 month he cancelled his admission. Then I have to subtract or deduct that person from office also, and office will send a request to a department that delete that. So that is what you have to apply certain kind of integrity constraints, meaning office data and department data should always going to be matched with the rules and regulations. So that is what integrity constraint. Then transaction manager we have already seen. File manager is responsible for allocation of space on the disk storage system. So that is what it gives a space. If it is not having that much space, it will give you error message that the data cannot be stored. Manages the data coming into and out of the system, including the caching of the data. Buffer manager, for every query execution you जैसे आपका program होता है and you run that program, what is going to happen is your program for temporary purpose it does into main memory, and then it is going to do processing, and then it comes to output. So same thing for a database query also. That database on which we are working will be coming into buffer area. We execute certain queries and again the database is going back to the actual storage. So that is what buffer manager is going to help us. So this is how we end with the unit number 1. Any doubt with this if you want to ask? And for we have seen a relational, we can call it as a relational model. So in next unit we are working on relational model. We are going to actually work on that relational model. We are going to write certain queries. We are going to we can call it as we are going to write queries. We are operating on database. We are creating all the things. We are working or we are enjoying on your databases. So for any queries of unit number 1 if you have, otherwise we'll start with our unit number 2. Is there any need to revise? Yes, no questions?
No, ma'am.
सब कुछ समझ में आ रहा है क्या? स्पीड है? कोई भी प्रॉब्लम है तो आप लोग बताओ. एक्चुअली है ना, पता नहीं चल रहा ऑनलाइन सिस्टम में, हम लोग बोलते जाते हैं फिर बाद में पता चलता है समथिंग क्या हो रहा है क्या नहीं. सो इट शुड बी इंटरेक्टिव. आप मुझे पूछो क्वेश्चंस. ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता कि इतने सारे टॉपिक्स बताए हैं और देयर इज नो सच क्वेरीज. एनीवन कैन आस्क. अच्छा, आज निखिलेश आया. निखिलेश, गुड मॉर्निंग. निखिलेश कुलकर्णी, आर यू देयर? Snehal, Snehal Kate, are you there? मैंने आप लोगों को पहले ही बोला है, जब भी लेक्चर हो तो आप आपके जब भी मैं कुछ क्वेश्चन पूछूं तो यू हैव टू अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ. Siddhi, are you there? Siddhi?
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ. So you understood overall database architecture?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So can you tell me who are sophisticated users?
Ma'am, sophisticated users are actually back-end users.
Yeah. Backend users meaning backend user होते हैं क्या? सिद्धि. Sophisticated user meaning they are analysts. They knows they are technically good in writing queries or operating on query tools. Clear? Shreyas,
Yes,
Shreyas,
ma'am.
Shreyas Pendekar. Sahil, Sahil, are you there? Okay, I'll just revise for 5 minutes unit number one, what we have learned, and then we are going to start with our MySQL database. And same, MySQL will be reflected in your practicals of DBMS lab, and it works with Group A. So you have to complete Group A based on this unit number two, and unit number six you have to based will be based on Group B, and Group C you have to implement a mini project, and in that mini project you have to implement front end also, and you have to work on back end also. So both thing you have to do. So mini project will be different at this time. I'm not going to use same project which you implement in Android. You have to implement another project in database. It should be a truly database management system, and it should have front end and it should have back end. Clear? So first step, you have to select your group. I'll be sharing in next week the list. You have to at least decide your group members. The group member size should not be more than four. It should be one, two, three, four, but it should not be more than four. uh, the group the project should be some kind of sponsored project, meaning you are working for some of the uh, needy person who requires some projects. So for front end you can use any language, you can use any platform, but back end you should work on database, and that to either Oracle or MySQL, not any different database. Clear? Either you have to go with MySQL database or Oracle database. Yes. And you have to start your project firstly with your ER diagram. You have to find the client's need. You have to jot down a story of that, all the requirements from a client. Then you have to draw your ER diagram. Every week I'll be giving you a timeline chart, and every week you have to complete that task. Clear? So before resuming to college, your project should be completed. Yes, you have ample time. You can design any website, you can do anything, but it should be useful for someone. So this should be sponsored. I don't meaning sponsorship meaning you should get some money out of it. It is your learning phase. So I expect you have to do a small project, but it should be helpful to someone. Clear? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll revise 5 minutes with your unit number one, and then we are going to start with our unit number two. As
Was
unit number one was all about theoretical concept of database management system. At the start of your unit, I'll sh- uh, at the start of your unit, we have seen the different Hello, am I audible? Am I audible? Yes, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I don't some network issue.
Yes, ma'am.
So at the start of the unit, we have seen what is data, what is information, what is knowledge. Then afterwards, we have seen data levels of database management system, that is levels of abstraction in database management system. There are three levels. First is view level, then logical level, and then physical level. Afterwards, we have seen, yes, what we have seen is, next topic we have seen what is data models. So we have seen different data models, that is hierarchical network, then ER, relational object model, and XML. So all these different models we have learned. Then afterwards we have seen about different this uh, different types of this database independence, physical level independence, logical level independence. We have seen the terms of a schema, what is schema and how to write a schema. Then we have seen diagram. So how to draw an diagram, what are different symbolical representation, what is mapping cardinalities, what is total participation, what is partial participation. Then we have seen strong entity, weak entity. Then we have seen some examples of how to draw an diagram. The four steps are very important. One is you have to write a story or describe your system in words or sentences. Then afterwards you have to select all the nouns as an entity, all the relationship as verbs as a relationship, and you have to make the diagram. Then third is you have to identify the attributes of the entities. And there are different types of attributes we have seen. Some is composite, multi-valued. Then we have seen derived. These are different types of composite. These are different types of attributes we have seen. Then we have seen extended feature of an diagram. In extended feature of diagram, we have seen aggregation, specialization, generalization, and we have seen inheritance. Then we have seen oral database system architecture. Then we have seen this different database architecture, client server architecture, distributed architecture, and all that different architectures we have seen. This was unit number 1. And all these presentations what I have shown or created is from core book. It's very best book to learn database system. All 5 units work covers in the same book. I have ebook I am going to share with you. And only one unit you have to refer another book. For MongoDB, it's a different book. I'll tell when we start with the unit. So core the book, you have to refer the core book for this. You'll be finding on net all the PPTs available of the course, and you'll be getting that all the material of this assignments with the solution. All this is meaning exercise of the book with the solutions is provided. So hence we stop with unit number 1. Some more questions will be added in your unit number 1 as an assignment. I'll give that assignment in next week. So we'll be starting with our unit number 2. So our unit number 2 is nothing but relational database management system. Now relational database management system is nothing but everything is looks like a table. So it's a structured form. So relational database management system is always, or relational is nothing but a table. And table is always in a structured manner. Structured manner meaning it should have rows and it should have column. Now there are different tools who which can be used, and these all tools supports SQL. Now you will ask me what is SQL. So SQL is nothing but structured query language, meaning like C++. If you are working on database, you will be finding SQL. SQL is nothing but structured query language, meaning structured meaning the table, or we can call it as the database which are in structured manner. So operating on query language, it's nothing but SQL, that is structured query language. And many tools supports this SQL. So one is MySQL, another is Oracle. You'll be finding DB2. There are n number of tools which are working on this, uh, working on this database management system using SQL, that is structured query language. Meaning these tools have support for SQL. Now we are going to learn two different tools in SQL. Now, who are working on SQL? One is MySQL, and another tool we are going to work is Oracle. Now, after learning these tools, we are going to identify what features we are getting in MySQL, and what features we are getting from Oracle, and what are the different parts which can be operated on MySQL but not Oracle, and the features which are operated on Oracle but not in MySQL. So we have to compare both the tools afterwards. Now if you talk with MySQL, so we'll learn the fundamentals of MySQL, and then we'll from next lecture I'm showing everything practical. I'll be sharing practically each and every query I'm going to execute for you people, and afterwards I'll be giving you time, and you have to submit all the output of of your queries on a Google group. So from next lecture we are going to learn practical. Today we'll learn what is MySQL and what are different challenges, or how a query can be written in a MySQL. So I'm sharing my PPT. I hope my screen is visible to you.
Yes, ma'am.
So now we'll just why we are going to use MySQL, and I have asked you one question. Have you operated any database system? So that day I have gave you answer, that is Microsoft Access. But what is the problem with Access? You can store only 1,000 records in Microsoft Access. If your database has less values, you can directly go with Microsoft Access. But what if your database contains like more than 1,000 records? So you can go with MySQL. So MySQL database size goes with some around I forgot actually the value, but in next lecture I'll tell you the exact value of MySQL storage. MySQL is the most popular open source relational SQL database management system. MySQL is the first benefit you are getting is MySQL is open source. MySQL is the one of the best software which works on RDBMS, that is relational database management system, where a table is there. Now MySQL is developed and marketed by and supported by MySQL AB, which is a Swedish company. So they have developed this MySQL. A database in MySQL is again same thing what we have learned. A database is nothing but a separate application that stores a collection of data. Again, we can search something from we can create, access, manage, search, or we can replicate the data it holds. That is what a database in terms with the MySQL. Then relational database management system is a software that enables you to implement a database with tables, columns, and index. It's guaranteed the referential integrity. How to apply this we are going to learn practically. Updates the indexes automatically. I have already told you can apply index, or indexes can be applied automatically, and it interprets your SQL query and combines information from variety of various tables. So it interprets your SQL query, that is it supports MySQL. Now in RDBMS, meaning relational database model, RDBMS meaning only table. So table database management system has database. It's a collection of different tables which are related. That is you have to, that makes a sense that it is related. Then table is nothing but it's a matrix. Then column is nothing but it contains one uh, column contains data of one and the same kind. Suppose your column name is roll number, so it should follow the roll number only. You could not include name in that column. So that is what a column makes sense. Then row is nothing but it is called as tuple or entry or record. It's a group of related data. For an example, the date of one subscription. So roll number one information, that is what one row. Redundancy is the storing data twice, meaning same अगर roll number one की entry already table में है and you are repeating one more time, so that is all, your data is redundant. Same thing can be repeated more than one. I'll show practically all these things, what is the redundancy and everything, and how it faces a problem. Now RDBMS systems can be operated using Oracle, MySQL, MS Access, PostgreSQL. Microsoft SQL Server, IBM DB2, and SQLite. There are n number of databases applied on this RDBMS. Now, first thing we have to learn is a primary key. Now, जब हम लोग टेबल में आते हैं तो फर्स्ट पार्ट इज वी हैव टू फाइंड अ प्राइमरी की. Now there are certain steps to get a primary key. I have already talked about primary key in last lecture, but still we'll repeat. Primary key is a unique key. Now there you will be finding in SQL, you will be finding a feature called as unique also. So how a primary key and unique key is changed? Now primary key is nothing but उसके अंदर कभी भी null value नहीं आ सकती. First thing. Second is it is unique. मीनिंग अगर आपने वन स्टोर कर दिया है ना, आपने वो कॉलम को प्राइमरी बनाया, तो नेक्स्ट टाइम अगर वन आप स्टोर करने जाओ तो दैट विल फॉलोज integrity rule is break, so it is not going to allow that value to be inserted into the table. So that is what the key value cannot occur twice in one table. With the key you can only find one row because primary key is only one. So you will be getting that using a primary key. If you are searching something from a table, you will be getting as an output only a single row. Now foreign key is nothing but it is a link between two tables. Now suppose sometimes it happens कि ऐसा होना चाहिए कि एडमिशन के टाइम पे बच्चा अगर इफ अ स्टूडेंट इज एंटरिंग फ्रॉम इन अ एडमिट डिपार्टमेंट एंड टेकिंग एडमिशन, then only the person is going to be entered in the department. There should be no any channel where the student is directly coming to the department and taking admission. So it has to follow this rule strictly. So that is what a primary key meaning. A primary key में जब तक वैल्यू की एंट्री ना हो, it should not be inserted into another table. So there is a link between the uh, uh, first table and second table, and that link is nothing but in if a table has its own primary key and if it is referencing to another table, in that another table it is acting as a foreign key. We'll be learning afterwards what is primary key, foreign key. Just timing you understand, a foreign key is a link between two tables where it has to follow some kind of integrity between each other. Then comes is compound key. Now compound key meaning you can make multiple columns to club together to form a primary key. Then comes is index. Index is nothing but just like a book. If your book is having a book, it doesn't have any index. So if I want to search something, I have to turn one by one all the pages to get the data. And if the indexes would be there, so the searching time will be reduced because on the front page only I'll be getting the information where the exactly I'm going to find my content. So that is what index in the table helps. It if the table is not having indexes, it requires searching time. Suppose my table has record 10,000 and if I want to search 10,000 wala record in normal database, it has to search, it will compare each value with the column till it gets 10,000 record, meaning all 10,000 records are being searched to get one value. But if you have applied index, it will take only one time to get and directly it will be switching to 10,000 wala record. So searching time is reduced in by applying indexes. And how to apply indexes we'll be seeing practically. Then comes referential integrity. Now referential integrity makes sure that foreign key value always point to the existing row, meaning referential integrity meaning if your table, I can show within a table. So if this is my table and if I have ID and here I am getting name, and this is my another table which is having ID and his marks and total. Okay. Now what happens is if I have roll number 1, 2 and 3, so result of 1, 2, 3 should only be there. We could not add 4 here. Yes, meaning roll number 1 has some name and we are only entering 1 to 3. It might happen that 3 has not given the exam, so we could not write 3. That will do because it should entered in primary key. If you are not using in foreign key table, it can make a sense. But suppose here you will be not finding any roll number 4, which is primary key, and this is foreign key. ID is a primary key here, foreign key ID is here. Now 4 is added here, meaning 4 was not present in the primary, but still one is adding 4 here in foreign. So this is not going to allow, and this is what referential integrity rule breaks. So first 4 should be added here, and then only one can add 4 here. If suppose 3 is not added, it doesn't make a sense. If it is residing in primary but it is not residing in foreign, so it will do, that key is acceptable. But if it is not in primary and if you are adding in foreign key, then it is not going to work. So this makes the sense that this is called as referential integrity, meaning a primary key is refer with foreign key. So this reference should this has to follow some integrity, otherwise the referential integrity rules breaks. So that is what referential integrity makes sure that the foreign key value always point to an existing row. Now this is benefit of MySQL, why we are using it. Is open source, it is customizable. As it is open source, we can add our features to is quicker database. It works well on with a large data set. MySQL supports many languages like PHP, Perl, Java. We can connect all this front end language with MySQL. It's a standard form of well-known SQL database language. MySQL supports large up to 50 million rows it stores in a table, and the default size limit for a table is 4 GB, but you can increase this to theoretical limit of 8 million or terabytes. So this much size MySQL supports. So if you are implementing any system, you have to check how many records will be there for that system, and based on that you have to select the database. So 50 million and 4 GB, and you can extend it to. Now MySQL feature is it's a relational database management system. It is easy to use. It's very secure because there is a password protected, and many sensitive informations are been encrypted in MySQL. Then client server architecture it supports. We can do communication between a client and server. Then it's a free to download. You can easily MySQL requires hardly 2 or 3 minutes to install. Then it is scalable meaning you can increase the size if your system supports. Then compatible on many operating system, as it is open source and it is compatible with almost all operating systems. uh, Allows rollback. We'll see this rollback meaning if the system is crashed, we can get back. So that is we can roll back. So that features is allowed. High performance, faster, more reliable, and very cheaper. And it's a unique storage engine architecture. Highly flexible. We can supports a large number of embedded applications. High productivity. It uses triggers, stored procedure, and views, which allows the developer to get high productivity. We'll see all this practical implementation of triggers, stored procedure, views, etc. Now data types of MySQL, it is having numeric data type. It is int, float, double, decimal. Now we have to see this. We can call it as these different data types are being used in terms of numeric. Then for date, you can use date time, timestamp, time, year, etc. Then for character, you'll have character and varchar. Now you'll ask me what is character and varchar. So character has some limitation of the size, uh, and it stores in the sub. A character has 255 maximum limit, and the character if you're using, so it limits the size of the character. So we are using varchar. It has 2000 characters you can store in the string. So mostly we are going to work on varchar. Then you have text. You can have long text. Again, the size difference between text and long text, we can go with binary also. And if you are storing some kind of images or another file format, then you can going to use tiny blob, medium blob, and long text. So these are different MySQL database. We'll be learning one by one. I'll show all this. By default, if I am using integer, it gives me 10 digits integer I can store. If you are going to use int, there are all the descriptions I am having with this PPT. Now these are all different data types we'll be see afterwards. Now for next lecture, you come with the installation. You take in your Ubuntu operating system of, or or you are going with Windows, you have to install MySQL installer, sudo apt get install MySQL server, you have to install. Okay, you come with this statement in next lecture. So we are going to enter, so we'll start practical session in next lecture. So we'll see how to create a database, how to create a table and everything. So I hope I'll stop for today's lecture. Okay.
Ma'am,
Okay.
I have a request.
बोलो.
Ma'am, if you could upload the PPTs on Google Classroom, वो क्रॉस
Yes,
रेफरेंस
yes.
के लिए काम आ जाता है मैम.
हाँ, नहीं नहीं, पक्का मैं करती हूँ. एंड प्रैक्टिकल्स के लिए तो है ना, हैंड्स ऑन आपको नोटबुक लेना पड़ेगा. एंड इफ पॉसिबल ना, नेक्स्ट लेक्चर से आप लोग लैपटॉप लेके बैठो तो मेरे साथ साथ करो. एक बार मेरे साथ कर लोगे ना तो इट विल मेक सेंस कि आपको फास्ट वो चीज़ें क्लियर हो जाए. तो आप प्रैक्टिकल करोगे, क्योंकि इसका प्रैक्टिकल एग्जाम जो भी होगा आपका, ठीक है, जो भी इसका प्रैक्टिकल एग्जाम होगा ना, तब आपको कोई भी बंदा सेम डेफिनेशन असाइनमेंट नहीं देगा, हर किसी को अलग अलग डेफिनेशन आएगा. सो यू हैव टू मेक श्योर कि आपको हर चीज़ करे, खुद करे. ठीक है, तो नेक्स्ट लेक्चर में आई होप करती हूँ कि आप इंस्टॉल करके रखोगे एंड विल गो विथ प्रैक्टिकल हैंड्स ऑन. सो पूरा अभी जब तक माई कंप्लीट नहीं होता, एवरी लेक्चर विल बी हैंड्स ऑन सेशन. क्लियर? ओके, आई स्टॉप. थैंक यू. हैव अ नाइस डे.
Hello guys. So this is our fifth lecture of software engineering and project management. So last time we have seen concurrent process model. So this concurrent process model is of evaluation process model type. So we have seen prescriptive process model in which waterfall model is there, then incremental process model is there, rapid application process model is there. Then we have seen evolutionary process models, means those software which require evaluation or the updation. So this software are get built by using evolutionary process model. So in last lecture, we have seen concurrent process model. So concurrent process models. So whenever you use this concurrent process model to develop your software project, so you will be able to divide your project activities into states. So we have seen states for modeling activity. So simultaneously you can do your communication, simultaneously you can do your planning, modeling, construction, or testing. So that is concurrent process model, means the process model which allow you to develop your project by performing concurrent activities. So this is your concurrent process model. So we have seen state for modeling activity in your software process model. So modeling is a activity which comes after planning. So initially there is communication, then planning and modeling. So initially you have gathered all the requirement and you are in a non-state, means you are waiting for transition. So here under development, awaiting changes, under revision, under review, baseline, and done. So these are the specs. So you will be working either in one of the states in modeling activity, and other team will be working in other state of other activity. For example, in communication state or in planning state. So this is your concurrent process model that we have seen in last lecture. Then we have seen unified process. So unified process, it divide your software engineering activity in four phases, that is inception, elaboration, uh, construction, transition, and production. So your in section, it encompasses communication and planning activity. So we have seen in section phase, you will meet with your customer and you will identify requirement and you will draw your primary use case model. So we have seen what is use case. So use case is what? Use case is description of how your user is interacting with your system or the software that you are developing. So we have seen one example of library management system, system. So in that your user, so you are a user or the librarian is a user. So the user will make login. So this is one activity. Your user will issue book. So this is another activity. He will submit book. Your librarian will calculate the fine, or he will submit that book to your library. So these are the activities that your user is performing with your system. So description of that activity is called as use case. So in inception phase, you will draw primary use case. So primary, why we are saying primary? Because it's our basic understanding that we are getting while communicating with our customers. So whatever the customer suggestions or the features and functionality that he want in his software, so we will draw a primary use case according to that requirements or the features which is suggested by your customer. So this is your inception phase. So it contains communication and planning also. So we will do some basic planning here. Then elaboration phase. So it also contains planning and modeling activity. So planning. So we are elaborating our planning and we are elaborating our primary use cases. So this is main intention behind elaboration. Then construction phase is there. So in construction phase, we will write source code and we will write test cases to test that source code. Again in transition, so this transition phase contain construction and deployment. So simultaneously we are delivering that our product to customer for evaluation. If our customer wants some type of modification or changes, again we will do that changes in construction phase. So this transition phase contain deployment and construction. We are deploying our project to customer side, and if customer wants some type of modification, so again we are making modification in our development side. So this phases get continued till and until we get our final product, that is a production phase. So in production phase, we will get our final product and we will deploy, finally deploy that product at customer side, that is production phase. So these are the phases in unified process, that is inception, elaboration, construction, transition and production. Then we have seen output of each and uh, every phase. That is inception phase is producing vision document. So whatever the vision that we are deciding, so we have to maintain that vision throughout your software development uh, project. So we are preparing that vision document in inception phase. Then initial use case, or we can say primary use case, initial project glossary. So what type of glossary or the resources that will require to develop your projects. So we will draw that initial, or we will identify that initial project glossary in your inception phase. So it may contain the resources in the sense hardware, software, the tools, it may be testing tool or development tool, then hosting, then manpower, uh, developers or tester require, or the supporting people require. So these are the initial project glossary, initial business case, initial risk assessment, initial project plan, initial business model. So these are the output of inception phase that get produced. Then we have seen second phase is elaboration phase. So in elaboration phase, we are elaborating whatever the output that we are getting in inception phase. So we will draw detailed use case model, supplementary requirement including functional and non-functional requirements. So we have seen what is functional and non-functional requirement. Functional requirement means those requirement which is suggested by your customer. For example, I want a login facility. I want login facility through fingerprints. I want login facility through face recognition. Then I want book issue facility, book return facility, then add new book. So these are the features and functionality which is suggested by your customer that should be present in your product. So we are calling that features and functionality as functional requirement. Then what is non-functional requirement? So non-functional requirement which are not related to functionality, which are related to quality of your product. For example, we are providing security, then we are providing performance. So your if your system is performing some type of calculation or computation, so in that case, that calculation should get done within short span of time. So this is performance. So this type of requirements are called as functional, non-functional requirement. Then in elaboration phase, we are drawing architecture of your system, then executable architecture, prototype. So whatever the first deliverable part, that is prototype. So we are drawing architecture for that executable prototype. Then primary design model, revise risk list. So whatever the risks that we have identified in inception phase, so we are revising that risk. Then project plan, including iteration, how many iteration will require to develop that project, adapted workflow, whatever the strategy that we are using to develop that project, milestone, technical work model. So these are the outputs of elaboration phase. Then in construction phase, uh, so this is a pure coding phase. So in this, we are designing model in the sense whatever the models that we have defined in elaboration phase, we are writing source code for that model. That is design model. Software components, integrated software increment, test plan and procedure, test cases, support documentation. So here we are delivering not only a source code, we are also delivering the supporting documents or user manual or installation procedure manual to our customer. So your construction phase doesn't contain only writing source code, it also contain writing test cases to test your software project and design of user manual or the installation procedure manual. And in transition phase, we are delivering our product to customer. Then we have seen beta test report. What is beta testing and alpha testing? So whenever you deliver your project to a customer, so customer will perform some type of evaluation on your project. So the software which get tested on your customer side, so this type of testing is called as beta testing. So there are two types of testing, alpha testing and beta testing. So alpha test generally happens on your developer side or in your organization in closed environment, and beta test which get happen on your customer side in open environment. Just for a second. Lectures on the So this is your beta testing. So beta testing means your customer will evaluate your product and your customer will generate a test report. Test report means whatever the errors or the bugs that he has identified. So he will report that bugs to your development team. So this report is called as beta testing. And he will provide feedback whether he gets satisfied or whether he wants some type of modification. So this is all about transition phase. So we have seen explanation of each and every phase. So these are the points that we have seen in last lecture. So today we are going to see agility. So what is agility or what is agile? So whenever you say agile people, so these people are quick responder. So whenever there is some task, so the people will respond to that task very quickly. So we are calling that people as agile people. So why there is need of this agile people in our software development team? So an agile team is a team that appropriately responds to changes. So whenever your customer wants some type of modification very quickly or very urgently, so in that case, this agile team will perform that modification and they will provide the updated version of your software product to customer. Then pervasiveness of your changes is the primary driver for your agility. Software engineering must be quick on their feet if they are to accommodate or they have to update the rapid changes. So whenever your customer want this type of modification or this type of changes very quickly, so your software engineering team or the people who are working in your team, they must be quickly stand on their foot to provide that changes or to accommodate that changes in your uh, product. But agility doesn't means that delivering your or making modifications very quickly in your software product. it is more than effective response to changes. It encourages team structure and attitude that make communications. It contains rapid delivery of operational software. It adopts the customer as a part of development team and work to eliminate us and then attitude. Means the people who are working in your agile team, so these people doesn't need a motivation from other people. They are self-motivated people. They are self-organizing people, and they doesn't never says that this is my work and this is not my work. Means they doesn't have us and them attitude. This is my work and this is his or her work. So this type of attitude they have. So this is all about agility, that is response to changes, quick on fit if they have according to changes, encounter team structure and attitude that make communication, focus on rapid delivery. So here rapid delivery is most important part of agile team. So whenever your customer want modifications or updation in his product very quickly, or they want updation very urgently, so in that case agile team will work on that changes or the modification, and they will provide rapid delivery to your customer. Then adopt customer as a part of development and eliminate us and then attitude. So whenever your software development start, agile team will integrate, or they will work with your customer. So they will get proper understanding of what features and functionality that customer want in his product. So there are some principles of agile team. So our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. So Agile people saying that our highest priority is to satisfy customer through delivering our product continuously and as early as possible. So why there is need to deliver that product early before deadline and continuously. For example, uh, we are developing ERP system. There is customer for our product, and the customer suggested that I have to build enterprise resource management, that is ERP system for my company or organization. So he is not able to identify what type of features and functionality that he want in his product. So initially he will say that I am developing that system to manage my people in my organization. So how to manage that people? So initially they will make whenever they comes to a company or they comes to organization, initially they will punch in admin office, or they will make face recognition system. There will be face recognition system to mark presence of your employee. So so whenever they make a punch, ERP system will mark the particular employee as a present. Then the system will get utilized to make payment of your employee. Then the system will get utilized to um, identify or the mark resources which is present in your organization. So initially he is able to um, tell only basic requirement that he want in his product. So whenever you develop that prototype, or whenever you deliver a core functionality to your customer, so customer will evaluate that product, and after evaluating that the initial prototype, he will find out some new idea or new features that may help you to your system or the system that you are developing. So your customer will get proper understanding of what type of system that is that we are building, and what new features and functionality that must be present in your software product. So whenever you deliver continuous, or whenever you continuously deliver a prototype to your customer, or so your customer must be able to evaluate your product. So that's why agile principle says that our highest priority is to satisfy your customer through early and continuous delivery of the software that we are building. So we will simultaneously, or we will deliver our product by weeks or by month. Then second principle, welcome changing requirement even late in software development process. So we have seen in some models, so this model doesn't allow changes in software development process. So initially there is communication phase. So let us take example of waterfall model. So in that case, we have seen disadvantages of using waterfall model. So initially you have to gather all requirement, and your customer must have some patience. So because your customer is getting final product in last phase, that is in transition or deployment phase. So in between, that is in communication or in a deployment, so in between your customer is not able to make a modification or change his requirement. So these are the drawbacks of using waterfall model. So as a developer or as a agile team, so you must say or you must welcome changes from your customer side. So customer side, if your customer is saying or changing his requirement in development or in testing or after delivering your product to customer, you must welcome, because your main intention is to satisfy your customer. So if you satisfy your customer, then and then only you will be do business in software market. So welcome changes to requirement. So this is second principle of agility. Third principle: deliver working software frequently from couple of weeks to couple of months with preference to shorter time scale. So this principle is saying that you have to deliver working product or working software product frequently within a week or within a month. But whatever the span that you are keeping to deliver your final product, so this time span should be small. Then fourth principle: business people and developer must work together daily throughout the project. So this principle is saying that business people means it may be a management people, or it may be stakeholders of your software project, and the developers. So developers may be uh, software sorry uh, coders or the tester. So all these people, they must work together daily throughout your software development project. Means, so why there is need to uh, work together. So whenever you work together, you will get understanding of each and every person who is involved in your software development project. So whatever the thinking of your management people, whatever the thinking of your development team, your testers or the customer. So we have seen some myths of management people. So management people are thinking that we already have books, we can provide that books to my uh, developer. So developer will read that book and they will write source code for a particular project. Or they are thinking that whenever we outsource a project to third party or the third organization, we can just relax and let that firm build the project. So the management people have this type of thinking, and developer is thinking that our software development process will make us to create unnecessary documentation, and because of that we slow us down. Or they are thinking that only executable program is final component or final product of our software development process. Our customer have some type of the thinking. We can provide initial details in initial phase, and we can provide further details in later in software development process. Or customer is thinking that software development process is flexible. We can suggest changes at any time in software development process. So each and every people has some type of understanding and some type of misconfusion about software development process. So whenever you work together, you will get understanding of what is thinking of each and every people who is involved in your software development project, and we will prepare a plan according to their thinking and according to your deadline. So this is fourth principle, which is suggesting that all the peoples or all the stakeholder and your development team must work together. Then fifth principle: build project around motivated individual, give them the environment and support they need, and trust them to get the job done. So this principle is saying that build project around motivated individual. So you must involve motivated or self-motivated people in your software development process, and give them environment and support they need, and trust them to get the job done. So whenever you assign any task to any person who is involved in your team, so you must provide some freedom to that people to complete that task. So you should not burden, or you should not provide burden. You have to complete that task, or you have to complete that code. You have to test your project within this time or within that deadline. So whenever any people who is working in your team, so you must provide some freedom, or freedom in the sense freedom regarding taking decision, freedom regarding completing assigned tasks. So you must provide that freedom to your people, and you must have some trust to complete your job or complete your task. Sixth principle: the most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within development team is face-to-face communication or face-to-face conversation. So why face-to-face communication is important? So on Facebook or on WhatsApp, we have seen one video. It might be Vivek Bindra or some other person. So the people who are standing in queues and uh, the person who is delivering speech or who is testing this face-to-face communication. So the person is saying some words in person who is last in your queue, and he's checking how the information is passed from person to person, and at last the person who is seated in first position or who is present in first position, so he checking just what is the outcome of outcome that he is getting from first person. So the outcome, so the input that he is giving to last person and the outcome he is getting from first person is completely different. So if you are using other communication media like telephone or emails or WhatsApp to get a requirement or to convey some information to people who are working in your team, so there may be some misconfusion about the uh, about your communication or the idea that you want to communicate with other person. So whenever you want to get a requirement or you want to convey some information to your development team, so you must prefer face-to-face communication. So this is sixth principle. Next, seventh principle, working software is primary measure of progress. So we are dealing with agile team or we are working in agile team, and our primary intention is to deliver changes which is suggested by your customer. So here we are focusing on executable program or executable software. So our primary measure of progress must be a working software or executable software. So whenever your customer suggests some changes, so we will accommodate that changes in our product and we will deliver that product to your customer. So that's why our primary measure of our progress is to each deliverable, sorry, each executable software or working software project. Next, eighth principle, agile process promotes sustainable development. Sustainable means a guaranteed development. The sponsor development and users should be able to maintain constant pace, that speed indefinitely. So whenever your customer or whenever stakeholder suggests some modification, so the agile team provide guarantee that we will deliver that product or we will deliver that changes within uh, decided span of time or within decided uh, deadline. Then continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhance agility. Continuous attention toward technical excellence and good design enhance your agility. So if your design is bad, so in that case, you will be not able to design your project or you will be not able to deliver your project within decided deadline. So whenever you make a design, so we have seen keep it simple and stupid approach. So in that we are making our design or we are keeping our design as simple as possible. So here simple doesn't mean that your design is dirty and you have design your architecture or you have designed your components in within a short span of time. So keep it simple means your design should be easy to understand and it should provide proper uh, uh, proper understanding to its stakeholder or the uh, person who is using that document. So whenever you have technical excellence and whenever you have good design, so definitely you will produce best result from that good design or by using our technical excellence. Next, 10th principle, simplicity. The art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. So whenever we start software development process, so our primary focus is on how much task or how much work that we have completed. So if you are focusing in or our focus is on the amount of tasks that we have completed, then we will not be able to the amount of tasks that we have left or the amount of tasks that is remain to develop. So the art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. So we should keep our focus on the tasks that we have not completed. So whenever you realize that this type of task that we have not completed, so we will start working on that task to complete or to complete that task within a deadline. So our main focus must be on the task that we have not completed, not on the task that we have completed. Then the best architecture, requirement and design emerge from self-organizing team. The best architecture, the requirement from your customer, and the designs or the architectures or or the diagrams that we are designing from the requirement. So this outputs comes from self-organizing team. So the people who are working in your team, so these people must be self-organizing and self-motivating team, motivating peoples. So whenever you doesn't need to motivate from other peoples or your higher management or top management, so in that case we will work well on your software development. So this is important principles of software development process or agile development process. So you must be, or the people who are working in your team must be self-organizing and self-motivating. And last principle, at regular interval, the team reflect on how to become more effective, then tune and adjust its behavior accordingly. So this principle is saying that whenever certain times gets elapsed, so you should check your performance and you should think on how to become more effective. And so to become more effective, you should tune yourself and adjust yourself, your behavior uh, according to that. So you will be able to become more effective than, or your performance will be more effective than your previous performance. So the people who are working in agile time, so at regular interval, the peoples or the team members should check their performance and they should identify how to become more effective, and they should tune their or adjust their behavior according to that. So these are the 12th principle that we have seen in agility. So agility means the people who are working in agile team. So these people providing quick response to changes. So so whenever a changes is required, so whenever you deliver your product to customer will evaluate that product and customer will check for modification or updations in his requirements. So whenever your customer suggests some modification or changes, so the peoples who are working in agile team, so they should be ready, or they must provide that modification in your software project within a short span of time. So that is agility. Then principles, that is have a highest priority to customer satisfaction through early and continuous delivery, welcome changes to requirement, then deliver working software frequently. So the time may be weeks or in months. So whatever the time that you are keeping to deliver your prototype, so you should keep that time as short as possible. Then business people and developers or the stakeholder must work together daily throughout your project. Then build project around motivated people, or you should involve motivated people in your team, and you should provide support. You should provide some freedoms to complete their task. Then the most efficient and effective method of conveying information is face-to-face communication. So whenever you are communicating any information, or whenever you are reporting to your job to a higher authority, so face-to-face communication is better way to conveying that information. Next, working software is primary measure of progress. So because we are working in agile team and we are our main intention is to modify our product according to customer suggestion or customer changes. So our main measure of uh, progress is deliverable, sorry, executable program or working software. Next, agile process promotes sustainable or guaranteed development. So whenever your customers say some modification or changes, so you should provide guarantee to your customer or stakeholder that we are definitely will make a modification, or we will definitely develop that product within decided deadline. Then continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhance agility, simplicity. So we should focus on the amount of work that is not done. The best architecture requirement and design emerge from self-organizing team. And at regular interval, we should check our performance, and we should think on how to become more effective, and we should tune our behavior according to that. So we will be more effective. So these are the 12 principles that we have seen in agility. So agility is very important part. It will get asked in exam for 8 marks or 4 marks. Next, extreme programming. So this is another important part in your software engineering. So in exam there will be there is question on extreme programming. Definitely there is question. So what is extreme programming, or what is pair programming, or what is unit test or testing in extreme programming? So this type of question will get asked in your question. So what is that extreme programming? So in diagram you can see planning, design, coding, and testing. So these are the same phases that we are using to develop our in our software development process. So here you can see that user stories, values, acceptance, test criteria, iteration plan, simple design CRC card, spike solution, prototype, then pair programming, unit test, continuous integration, and finally there is release, that is software increment, project velocity, computer. So in any software development process or software development process model, the initial phase is communication. Communication means what? We will communicate, or we will meet with our customer to get requirement from our customer, to understand a requirement that, or the features and functionality that he want in his product. So initially we will communicate with our customer to get understanding of requirements or the features that he want in his product. But here the scenario is different. In extreme programming, we will ask to our customer to write his requirement in the form of stories. So here you can see in diagram, user stories is there. So the development teams will ask to a customer to write his requirement in the form of stories. So user will write a story in the sense, let us take example of your library management system or your ERP system. So first requirement of library management system or ERP system, user will make a login by providing username and password. So initially user will enter his username and whatever the password that he have, and he will click on login button. So user will write story in the form of user will enter URL in browser, user will enter username, password, and click on login button. So whenever he click on login button, so if your username and password is correct, so in that case your system should get switched to your home page. So this is one story. So your customer will write that requirement in the form of stories. So the story may be related to your login. A story may be related to issuing book. Story may be related to uh, online transaction. Story may be related to adding particular item to your basket. So these are the examples of story which is written by your customer. Then after writing all stories, your customer will assign some values to that story. So value which is based on a business need. So what is a business need? So we are developing library management system, and user has written a login story, user has written book issuing story, book return story, calculating fine story, then display calendar is there, then logout functionality is there. So these are the stories. So after writing story, your user will assign some values depend on business need. Business need means which story or which features that he want initially or urgently in his product. So based on that, your user will assign some values to that story. So the initial requirement is a login requirement. So after entering username and password, your customer or your user should be able to log in your system. So this is first, or this is primary story which is written by user. So your user will assign highest value to that story. So once user has made successful login in your system. So there is dashboard or there is home screen. So this home screen is a second priority of your user. So user will assign second highest number to that store. So it's user thinking which value that he want to assign to particular store. Then if your user is a student, so in that case student will check particular book, student will issue particular book, student will submit a particular book. So in that case user will assign uh, third or fourth highest value to that store. So it's depend on your user or the customer which highest value that he want to assign based on his business value. So once your user has written your story and he has assigned business value to that story, then your development team will get that stories, and they will assign a value depend on the development weeks which will require to uh, write source code for that story. So let us take example of user has return the login functionality or login story. So after getting that login story from customer side, so developer will assign some value. So this value is based on the development time or development weeks which will require to write source code for that store. So if your developer is able to develop that login functionality within 1 week, so your developer will assign one value to that store. So within 1 week, he is able to write source code for that or write and test a source code for that login functionality. So initially your user is writing story, he is assigning some value based on his business need. So after getting that story, your developer is assigning value based on development time which will require to develop that story. So if the story is too large, so in that case, again your developer will ask to your customer to uh, break that story into sub stories. So if any story is very large or development time is required to write source code for that story is very large, so in that case your developer will may ask to your customer to break that story in a sub story. So again your customer will assign uh, some values based on his business need to that story, and developer will assign values based on development time which will require to write source code for that story. So this is planning phase. So in that in this planning phase, you are asking to your customer to write stories, and you are assigning values based on your business plan to that particular stories. So in planning phase, your customer and development peoples work together to decide how to group a stories, delivery date, and project matter. So we can see in a diagram a planning phase is there, and in planning phase we are getting requirement. So here planning phase encompasses communication and planning, both the phases. So here generally communication phase is absent. We are getting our requirement in the form of stories, and after getting that requirement by communicating with our customer, we are deciding the deadlines, the time within which we have to complete our project, and other project matter means the number of resources or the peoples who will be required to develop that project, or the testers, or the other resources like software hardware resources, or the platform on which you are going to host your website. So we are deciding that project matter by communicating with our customer. So in planning phase, user stories, then values which is get assigned by your customer and developer. Then acceptance test criteria, we are deciding acceptance test criteria. So what is acceptance testing? Acceptance testing means the project which get accepted by your customer. So we are deciding that criteria by communicating with our customer. Then we are also planning the number of iterations which will require to develop our projects. So that is our deadline. So once your customer has written the story, once your developer has assigned development weeks to your story, so we will start for design phase. So in a design phase, we can see simple design CRC cards and Spike solution prototype. So what is that CRC card? So XP design follow the keep it simple approach. Keep it simple. A simple design always prefer over more complex representation. So once you have simple design, so you will be able to write source code for that design in a better way. So XP use CRC card, that is class, responsibility, and collaborator. So we have seen in design phase we are drawing architecture, we are drawing class diagram, we are drawing use cases, we are drawing activity diagrams, swim lane diagrams. So these are the different representation of our project that we are drawing in a design phase. So here we are designing CRC card, that is class, responsibility, and collaborator. So what is that CRC? So let us take example. We are building online a banking application, or we are building ERP system. So our initial requirement is user should be able to make login by entering his username and password. So once your user has entered username and password, he will click on login button, and after verification of username and password, your system will display a dashboard or a home screen to your user. So here designer will identify what are the classes here and their responsibility. So designer has identified login class is there, then database validation class is there. So login class, whatever the parameters which is entered by your user, that is username and password. So login class will get that parameter. Login class will pass that parameter to login validate class for validation against your database. So once username and password, which is entered by your user, so this after getting that username and password, your login validate class will make a database connection. Then he will check a customer table, and he will retrieve username and password and compare username and password which is entered by your user against username and password which is present in your database. So if username and password is present in a database, then your login validate class will return true flag to your login class. If username and password is not present in your database, so in that case, your login validate class will provide false flag to your login class. So here, your designer has identifies that there are two classes, that is login class. So this login class is taking parameters which is entered by your user, that is username and password, and this class is passing that parameter to login validate class to check whether this username and password is present in your database or not. Then your login validate class is validating the parameter which you get from login class and comparing that parameter against your database. If parameters are present in your database, then your login validate class is returning true value. If it is not present in your database, in that case, your login validate class is returning false value. So while making CRC card, you will analyze your stories. You will analyze the classes which will require to fulfill that story. So here story is login, perform login. So this is our story. So we have identified login and login validate classes. So we will make class responsibility and collaborator. So let us take example of login class. So this is a class. His responsibility is to take parameter from user. So whatever the parameter that your user has entered, so this login class will take that parameter and it will submit that parameter to login validate class for validation. So this is responsibility of this login class. And collaborator. So collaborator means to fulfill that responsibility for which class the current class need to collaborate. So this login class is making collaboration with login validate class to fulfill his responsibility, to fulfill the responsibility that is check your user is validate or not. So your login class is making interaction with login validate class. So this is class responsibility and collaborator. The class that you identify is responsibility, and in collaboration means the other classes on which your class is making interaction to fulfill this responsibility.